So I came across this vendor who had several welding items on his table, and he also had some stuff on the back of his truck. And one of the items that I actually toyed with buying, and actually I made him an offer, and he turned it down. And then before I left, I made a point of going back there and making him the offer one more time, and he turned it down again. And part of me felt like, boy, I probably should have bought it. Part of me was like, I don't know. So what it was a Miller brand spool gun, and he had it with a foot pedal controller for it. And he was telling me how he had a Miller Bobcat welder that he used it on, and that he didn't use the foot controller because he had the plug on the front of his Bobcat that he could plug the spool gun directly into it, and the welder foot pedal would control it, I guess. So, anyways, he was pointing out to me that the thing was worth really big money, and he would have let me have those pieces for $200, which apparently, from what I gathered from what I saw online, is a pretty good deal because the spool gun alone, I guess, is worth that. And the idea being that if I had bought it for $200, I could probably turn around and sell the controller because I have a plug on the front of my Millermatic 250, which I think would take the spool gun. Matter of fact, I'm almost positive that I think we talked about that in the spool gun in the Millermatic 250 series. So, anyways, why did I pass? Well, because the spool gun is great for aluminum wire if you're going to do MIG welding with aluminum. I have my big Airco TIG welder, which is well versed at aluminum from what I've read online. Matter of fact, that's why a lot of guys still run those units, is for doing a lot of aluminum work. So if I do end up needing to do some aluminum, I can probably just do it with my TIG welder. So I don't really see myself getting into a situation where I'm doing like production. I guess if I was building docks for a living or something like that, or other like railings and stuff out of aluminum where I needed to lay down a lot of aluminum bead, then I'd probably want to have something like that. Otherwise, I just think it'd be another thing that just sits here forever before I get around to even finding a use for it. I didn't want to tie up that kind of cash in something, even though it was a good deal. But I also looked around at some of the other stuff he had here, and I spotted this bag, and I was looking in the bag, and I was like, "Oh, what are you getting for this?" And he tells me $6 for the bag with the contents, and I was like, "Yeah, I can't pass that up." So this is even the tool bag's kind of nice. It's a McGuire Nicholas. I'm not familiar with that company. I don't know if that's a company that sells some sort of product or what. I'm not familiar with McGuire Nicholas. Hey, look, but I don't think the zipper's even broken on it. No, it's actually a working, decent tool bag. But I didn't buy it for the bag. $6 bought me the contents of the bag. Oh, except for, well, I was looking at the other stuff on his table after I bought this, and I was looking at this microphone because I'm kind of a sucker for old vintage CB and ham radio stuff. So I got quite a few actually things in my collection along this line. I saw how it was wrapped up in the bag, and I was like, gee, I wonder if that's actually new. And I was getting ready to take it out of the bag to see if it was new old stock, to decide if I wanted to make an offer on it. It's a Pace microphone, by the way. And I don't remember if I asked him what he wanted for it, or he just saw me touching it. He says, hey, if you want, you can have that. He threw it in. So I got this Pace microphone for free. I do want to take it out right now. I'm just curious to see if there's any signs of wear on this thing. Because if it's a new old stock Pace microphone, I don't have any radios that this will fit. But this might be a good item to sell online. It's got this unusual 4-pin where 2 pins are wider spaced than the other 2 pins. That's not common on many radios. I'll tell you what, that's a brand new microphone. Way too clean. That's a brand new mic. So we'll put that right back in there. So it's a pace. It's plastic. It's not a high dollar. Not a high dollar item. But to somebody who might have one of these radios that came with this microphone, and if the microphone's all beat up on theirs, that might be a $15 item. And I got it for free just because I was the only guy who probably picked it up all day. So let me show you the contents of the $6 bag. Item number one is this big honkin' TIG torch. This torch, this is a serious looking torch here. This is marked model H16. But the size of this cable, I mean, this is going to be like at least a 200 amp torch, I bet. Hey, what do you know? Looks like the H16 indicates that this is an old Airco torch. So this is an Airco torch. And from what I found online, apparently it's a 160 amp. But being that it's an Airco, I'm thinking this might be able to directly thread into my... well, no, wait a minute now. Can I do that? Yeah, maybe I can. Alright, so no, I can't just plug this in. I can't just use this on my... Because I've got a water-cooled torch on there, so I need a power block that... different kind of power block. Right? Because this is... The gas goes in through here, and the power also goes through here. So this has to screw to a power block that would have a gas line hooked into it from the gas solenoid valve. That must be how that rigs. I don't know. I got it all set up for my water-cooled torch. I've never used an air-cooled torch. guess I've probably I guess that would be considered spoiled, that I didn't have to go from an air-cooled torch and graduate to a water-cooled. I bought the setup and it came with it, and that's what I've learned on. So but anyways, I got a big air-cooled torch. If I want to get a power block, if I really feel the need to really feel the heat, then I could. Apparently, there's still parts for this, but in that bag for $6. Oh, and by the way, not for nothing, but I wonder how big the conductor is in this thing for 160 amp. I also don't know what the hell's going on here. This could be a complete nightmare. This could be the gas was leaking here because of O-rings or something, or it could even be the body could be cracked under here. I'm not even going to take that off to find out what's going on in that nightmare. So also in this bag of goodies is this torch, and this is a CNI-9. Okay, so this is obviously a much smaller torch, air-cooled. Alright, so apparently CNI is a torch manufacturer, but the CNI-9 capacity is 125 amps. So this is a 125 amp continuous duty air-cooled torch, nice and light. And it goes on to say that it is interchangeable parts with L-Tech, Weldcraft, and similar torches. So a lot of number 9 torch components will fit this. So that is something I might want to get the power block for. If I don't want to deal with the water cooler noise and all that, if I'm just doing a small job, which a lot of my jobs are small jobs. Apparently this is a one-piece power cable. And they also had an optional 2-piece cable. That must be where the power is not running inside the hose. Huh. Wonder why you would want that. So it looks like all I need is a doohickey like this right here to use these air-cooled torches. Oh, one last observation. This torch, unlike that last one, looks to be in excellent condition. I mean, it looks, you know, a few rubs here and there, but looks like it's in great shape. And when I was debating whether or not I wanted to bother spending $6 on a couple of air-cooled torches, since I have a water-cooled torch, I looked down at the bottom of the bag and I saw this puppy. A water-cooled torch with the power block. This is another CNI. This is a number 18. So this is a bigger torch. A number 18 torch water-cooled. I wonder how much power this can do. Well, it turns out CNI stands for Ceramic Nozzles Incorporated, and this company is still in business. So I just looked up the specs for this torch. This CNI-18 water-cooled torch is rated for 350 amps continuous duty. Man! 350 continuous duty. That's like wow. Woof. So I certainly do not know what that torch setup cost new, but I imagine it's not chicken feed. So I got 2 air-cooled torches and one big honkin' water-cooled torch, and I got one red, slightly used tungsten, 4 cups, one back cap, and I see 2 collets and 2 nozzles. That was a hell of a score for $6, I think. So earlier in the day, I went by this vendor who had a whole bunch of junk on tables and on blankets and stuff, and I happened to spot this and looked brand new. And you know, he saw me pick it up, and I said to him, I was thinking to myself, I know I have a couple of these, but I don't know if I have all sizes. So I couldn't remember what sizes I had. So I was like, do I even want this thing? So when I picked it up, he says $1. So I said, okay. And then he made a comment about it being a spring. He actually thought this was some kind of a spring. But this is a tubing bender for copper tubing. It helps keep the copper tubing from kinking when you try and bend it. And the key is the copper tubing is going to be a perfect fit inside that. So you have different sizes for, you know, what you're doing. So anyways, the point is I bought this off that guy for $1, and I looked at some of his other stuff, and I was going to ask him about a couple of things, but I was not really, you know, that attached to anything there. And then later in the day, I went back by his setup there, and I looked again, and I happened to see this motor that I had kind of ignored when I first saw it, because I was like, I don't need any more motors. But it was a nice older, I think, Craftsman motor. And so when I asked him how much for the motor, and he said $3, I figured for $3, it looked clean enough, I'll just take a chance and see if it works. So here's my $3 Craftsman motor. So the first thing I noticed was that on the top, somebody wrote with a marker, works 4-2618. So supposedly on April 26th, somebody powered this up and decided it works. Okay. First thing I needed to consider was, well, I didn't really have to consider anything, because the first thing I thought was, you know what? If this motor is completely junk and I throw it in my scrap pile of motors, it's going to bring probably around 20 cents a pound scrap. Furthermore, this is a good pulley. This pulley, if I needed one, is well worth the $3. And even if I don't need one, again, scrap value plus the value of the pulley, and you know, cut the cord off and get some value out of that. So a couple observations I made here. Look at that that old radio style plug on there. That's a puff. And then we've got that going into somebody took an outdoor surface mount. I don't know if it's outdoor, but it's definitely a surface mount outlet box or switch box. They put a lamp switch in there, or a regular single pole switch in there. I'm guessing they did that because maybe this switch right here is not working anymore, so they just bypassed it. This is a little damp because I had it under a tarp and it's been so humid, there's some condensation. So I'm going to fire this up, but I'm not going to touch the body of the motor barehanded. There's also a very strange bracket on the bottom here that somebody put on this thing, hobbled together with a couple of pieces of angle iron and whatnot. But the nice cast base is present. It's also a double-ended motor. Okay. So 115 volt, 3450 RPM, 7.8 amps. Sears Roebuck does not tell me. Oh, right here, half horsepower capacitor motor. So doesn't sound too horrible. Doesn't sound too great either, but it's a $3 motor, you know. So I'm going to plug this in. I don't know if that switch appears to be in the off position. Let's throw this in the off position too. See if I get plunged into darkness, because I'm plugging into the circuit. Oh, perfect. There. The centrifugal switch is a little noisy. Who cares? Important thing is when it comes up to speed, sounds perfect. There's nothing wrong with that motor. $3. Can't beat that with a stick. Oh, there's a problem. So that switch doesn't work, so that's why they bypassed it. See, you don't hear that horrible noise until after you hear that click. That click is the centrifugal switch snapping back into its start position. So there's like a phenolic ring on there or something that's probably just rubbing. Yeah, so they bypassed this switch. But $3, what a deal. One last comment about this motor. The fact that it has this switch mounted on the base like this makes me think that this was originally maybe a bench grinder, but it's got, no, that doesn't make sense because the shafts are all wrong for that purpose. It's interesting. Oh, so anyways, you know, getting that motor for $3. I hadn't even picked the motor up off of the blanket yet to carry it back to the truck. Just hearing that he wanted only $3 for that motor, I'm like, okay, this guy, he wants to get rid of as much stuff before he leaves here today. He doesn't want to load this crap back into his truck. So that made me start looking around. And the next thing I spotted was actually an item. I'm going to call it the mystery item, because it was all in the box, all taped up. The outside of the box says what it is, but I don't even know if that's what's in it. And it was late in the day. It was hot as hell that day. I wanted to get out of there. He wanted to get out of there. So I said to him, we went back and forth. I said, how about $7 for it? And that'll make it 10 even with the motor. And he agreed to that. Then I continued shopping. What we worked out was I got all of this stuff and the stuff I just mentioned for $25. So I got the motor for $3, the mystery box for $7, and we'll get to that near the end. And this crap here for $15 more. These are two items that I looked at earlier in the day and didn't bother even asking about because I wasn't overly impressed because of the fact that they are made in China. But $15. So this is probably like Harbor Freight deal. Yeah, that sounds like an Harbor Freight part number right there, 06770. Gasket punch set. Okay, 15-piece gasket punch set. And all this is a comes with this parts diagram. Okay, and what this is a what does that say? Yeah, there you go. Distributed exclusively for Harbor Freight tools. All this is a doohickey here. Okay, it's got like a center punch, and it's got these this threaded thing on it, and then it comes with these cutters. So these just have a thin, sharp wall edge, and what you do is you pick, you got gasket material, and you want to make a gasket, and you need a certain size hole. You pick the size hole you need, you thread this on here, okay, and then I guess the deal is that this sticks out proud enough so that you can, I'm guessing what you do is you screw it on like this, and then you line that up on the point where you want to be, and then you probably just turn this down, and then once it raises up, maybe you whack it. I don't know. Point is, this is the kind of thing, if I use this once, I'll be happy. The gasket punch kit is not a toy. Never allow children to use this tool. Use the receding plunger to mark dead center when the first outside cut is made, so that the second cutout of the inside diameter is always accurate. Huh? It don't seem to recede to me. This apparently got wet somewhere. Probably was out at, it was probably out all night long at the flea market. They set up the night before. Well, anyways. Oh, this is broken off too. That's why. That's a puff. So, 15 bucks for this. And I knew it wouldn't make much difference to the deal, so I found these two old wrenches. I'm kind of a sucker for these old. This one actually is a marked $2, but this is a Her brand wrench, 1.25" and 11/16. That's good old steel there. Look at this one. I don't know why, but I fancy myself as doing some kind of a project with these, kind of like doing some kind of an artistic thing with them. Yeah, whatever. Here is a countersink, big one. Yeah, whatever. Why leave it there? I searched through all of his boxes high and low, and sadly I could not find the other half of this clamp. And you're probably wondering at this point, what do you care? You just showed us you've got too many clamps, and you keep saying you got to stop buying them. The reason why I wanted this one so bad, because it is a Brown and Sharp 754D. It's marked clearly right on there, Brown and Sharp. That was a nice clamp. So I just couldn't leave it. And then this one here. Now this looks like a shop-made clamp, right? It's like, oh yeah, Steve, why the hell did you buy that? Look, it's just made with bolts. Somebody just made this thing. I'll tell you why I bought it. And I don't even know if the guy noticed it or not. The jaws are solid brass. I kid you not. That is some nice honking brass right there. See it shining? All that glitters is not gold. That's right, it's brass. Exolite. Smell like vomit. Hollow shaft color-coded nut drivers. These are very good quality nut drivers used by people in the electronics trade like myself. These are dirty and oxidized and may or may not be missing one. He said it was missing one, but I honestly think, let's see. Oh yeah, there's that vomit smell. The type of plastic that the handles are made out of, when it degrades over time, it gives off a gas. That gas is the same chemical gas that is present in vomit. The kind of vomit you used to smell when you were a kid and the guy had to come with that weird, disgusting sawdust type product and clean it up. Well, at least that's in my day, that's what they did. Yep, there's supposed to be 10 in there, so it's missing one. Who knows, I might even have, I've got a few odd ones of these. I might even have one to complete the set. But the point is, I mean, I'm only into this for a couple of bucks when you think about it. Compared, we got all this treasure here. Well, I mean, the gasket cutting thing, that's worth $5, right? And so then, say I'm into this for $5, and then this stuff would be all free, which you're probably thinking, yeah, it should be, it's junk, right? Well, but you know what? Scrap value on that brass alone is probably, I don't know, a couple bucks anyways, right? But more importantly, if I have a project where I need a piece of brass, oh, look at this. This guy put his name right on here, too. Anyways, you know, maybe I can use that. And I got this thing. So what is this? Well, I'm glad you asked. So this apparently is also some cheap chinesium device. This is not clearly marked as Harbor Freight, so I don't know who made this. But this is called the Metal Round Hole Hand Punch Tool Power Punch Kit. And what this is supposed to be is this is supposed to be able to punch holes in metal. So it goes on somewhere in here. It mentioned the capabilities of this thing. It must be on this side here. Powerful, lightweight hand punching tool for punching holes in all types of metals. Develops a ton of punching power. Power punch, accurate precision round holes in steel, aluminum, brass, copper, plastics, etc. with one hand. Great for use where electricity or power not available, indoors or outdoors. Handy tool for roofer, plumber, electrician, sheet metal fabricator, auto mechanics, and home mechanics, etc. So then down here it says furnished with side gauge for depth adjustment. Throat depth is 2 inches. Overall dimensions of hand, blah, 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 blah. Perfectly balanced. All right. Will pierce up to 14 gauge mild steel. That's where the rubber hits the road. 14 gauge mild steel. So, looks like there's one loaded in there already. This is the depth gauge, so if you're like going down the line on the edge of a piece of sheet metal and you want each one to be the same distance from the edge, I guess. So that's interesting. Let's see if we can't find something to punch a hole in. Huh. I don't know how hard it was to find something to punch a hole in that wasn't either too thick or too valuable. I want to just grab a sheet metal and punch a random hole in it. This is a piece of copper tubing that was banged flat to be used as a soft jaw when clamping something, and I just decided for the hell of it to try and punch a hole through it, and it did it nicely. Nice clean hole. So that's actually kind of a neat tool. No idea what that cost. All right, I found one online called Capri Tools. It's apparently sold on the Home Depot website for like $30, and then I found one on eBay that's called Euro Power that apparently is selling for like $25 new. So it's a cheap import tool, but you know, it's not something I'm going to use all the time. I'm happy with that. So I'm out here right now at the back of the truck because I wanted to go through this box right here. This is the box I got from the guy that I bought stuff from first thing in the morning. I bought the tachometers and the meter and that other weird stuff from him. And then he had this box of oils and fluids. And I went through it, after I came back the second time, I went through it and decided to haggle with him over it. And I got this box of fluid for either 10 or 15 bucks, I forget which. I usually try and get this kind of stuff for 50 cents a bottle when I buy it in bulk like this, and it ends up working well for me. It has in the past. So let's take a look at what we got. All right, just try and knock this out real quick. I got 4 quarts. These are all unopened. 4 quarts of Mobil 1 synthetic V-twin motorcycle oil, 20W50. So these would be for like your Harley big twins and stuff like that. So those are a good score. I got 2 quarts of CarQuest brand ATF Plus 4 automatic transmission fluid for Chrysler transmissions. That's good. I got 2 quarts of CarQuest Dex Merc automatic transmission fluid, so that's going to be for your it should also be Chrysler, I think, Mercury. Then I also have 1 quart of CarQuest Dexron 3 Mercon automatic transmission fluid. And I've got this quart here, but the label's pretty damaged on it. But I can just make out the X-Ron over here. Looks like X-Ron 3, so that's going to probably be Dexron 3 in there also, and it's definitely CarQuest by the looks of the label. What's left of the bottle, I mean the bottle. It's got that little symbol on it. 4 unopened quarts of Citgo brand extra range outboard motor oil. So this is 2-stroke oil for pre-mixing gas for 2-stroke outboards, and 1 bottle that is open, but I checked it and it's good clean oil, so no sense in letting that go to waste. I got 1 quart of Citgo Ford transmission type F fluid. This is for Ford vehicles that require type F transmission fluid. I do not have any Ford vehicles. However, I noticed it says on here it's also recommended for power steering units. So I don't think my 03 Dodge Dakota with a bazillion miles on it, I don't think the power steering pump in this thing's going to care if I use this in it. Well, I might be wrong. I'll probably just check that to be sure. I always get a kick out of some of the oils that I end up finding in these kind of buys. This is a quart of Castrol non-detergent motor oil SAE 10W. So this is just straight 10-weight oil. So it's non-detergent. Any old application I could use this in, but boy, it's light oil, 10-weight. I almost didn't bother taking this. This is an unopened quart of Cub Cadet Drive System Fluid Plus synthetic blend. So this must be used for transaxles in hydrostatic drives on Cub Cadet lawn tractors. But I'd be willing to bet it would probably work in other systems, because Cub Cadet, doesn't make the transaxle. They have it made for them by some other company. I can't think of some of the names off the top of my head, but that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking this could be used elsewhere. And lastly, this is an open quart that's about a little over half full of the type of oil that's used in Fisher snowplow systems. So, it's oil, it's slippery. I'm wondering whether or not this might be able to be used as hydraulic jack oil. I'll have to check and try and get a better idea of what that is. At worst case scenario, I'm going to keep it with a brush handy and use it when cutting and see what happens. Yeah, I know it's not really good cutting oil, but it's going to be put to use. So I got 17 quarts unopened and then a couple of partial quarts here. So I can't remember honestly if it was 10 or 15 bucks for this lot, but I'm satisfied with that.